Welcome to Soccer Ability, where we provide evidence-based principles and training protocols for players, parents, coaches, and technical leadership in soccer. This video will uncover the underlying science of technical skill in soccer. Imagine putting loads of time, energy, and possibly even money into training, only to see minimal results. Unfortunately, this happens all too often to the unexpecting and uninformed. In this video, we'll answer questions such as, what is technical skill? And how can we effectively train technical skills during training, as well as on our own? After watching this video, you will hopefully have a more informed understanding of what it means to be technically skillful, as well as have a clear idea of how to train effectively for skill development. The traditional approach to soccer development is to try and reverse engineer and compartmentalize performance into 4 areas. These areas are technical, tactical, physical, and mental skill and ability. As humans, we like to think linearly. For every effect, there must be a clear cause. We think that players must master the fundamentals in each area in isolation, before piecing them together in game-like scenarios. We break apart each aspect of performance via compartmentalization, and then expect players to piece them back together during a match. In reality, evidence from scientific research performed in athlete development clearly shows that a player's capacities, such as speed, strength, mental acuity, tactical understanding, and ball mastery, are all interwoven and connected like a web. They are constantly interacting and influencing each other in networks, and networks within networks. Think of a mathematical equation of multiplication versus addition. A player's qualities interact like several numbers interact in a multiplication equation. If one number changes, it influences all of the others to create an end product. Not like isolated pillars that can be changed one at a time, and then added together to create a sum. In the words of doctors John Cone and Gareth Smith, we can't continue to look at the player, who is a complex biological system, and compartmentalize that player's characteristics and expect to fully maximize his or her potential. The process of performance development cannot be grounded in a mere aggregate of independent processes leading to performance. In exercise science, there's a principle called specific adaptation to imposed demands, also known as the SAID principle. This principle refers to training specificity. The system will adapt to the demands placed on it. The type of demand placed on the body dictates the type of adaptation that will occur. The more similar the training activity is to the actual sport movement, the greater the likelihood that there will be a positive transfer to that sport. In other words, if you want to get good at playing soccer, you need to play soccer. Our movements in sports are in direct relation to the environment around us. A player must perceive what is unfolding in front of them, make decisions on what to do based on cues they've learned, and then execute those decisions based on their current capacities. According to Arsenal legend and current head of player development for FIFA, Arsene Wenger, the problem in football is that you learn to play the wrong way round. First execution, then decision making, and perception last. This process of perceiving, decision-making and executing is connected and occurring every second of every game, whether or not the player is consciously aware of it. Achieving a desired outcome, such as scoring a goal, given environmental and individual constraints, is called a movement solution. Consistently coming up with movement solutions during games is the true meaning of skill and creativity. It is the result of multiple systems within our body, including perceptual cognitive parts of our nervous system, all working in tandem, not in isolation. Why then do we attempt to train skills so often in isolation? Instead, training the connections between points in the performance web is just as important, if not more so, than the training of isolated capacities, such as ball mastery practiced against cones, and not defenders. In order for skills from training to be transferable to a game, they must be practiced in a similar environment encountered during a game. Unfortunately, traditional and reductionist approaches to training pulls the player away from the environment they are supposed to perform in, making its transferability from practice to performance during a game low. Whereas there is a time and a place for the isolation of these areas in our training, we must focus the majority of our time training their synchronization, since each and every action performed in a game involves all of them working in tandem. With this in mind, our definition of technical skill refers to the ability of a player to manipulate the ball to achieve certain outcomes during a match. Key phrases are outcomes and during a match. This differs from what we call ball mastery, which refers to a player's relationship with the ball, or their capacity to manipulate it in general. One involves active perception and decision-making, coupled with physical execution. The other is purely physical execution. A player can have an excellent relationship with the ball, but execute their actions in the wrong place and at the wrong time. Does this mean that they are technically skillful? On the other hand, a player may appear uncoordinated and clumsy on the ball, but get consistently positive outcomes during a game. Two examples of these types of players who possessed seemingly poor ball mastery, yet were incredibly effective soccer players, are both Thomas and Gerd Müller. It was said of Gerd Müller that he was not your typical professional soccer player. He was overweight, not fast, and lacked technique. The first couple of times he scored a goal, it was written off as lucky. An article written by The Guardian said that Müller's style was utilitarian for the most part. His finishes were rarely crash-bang affairs. Most of his goals were trundled, steered, poked, sniffed out or bundled home from close range. At first glance, much of his work appears signally underwhelming, approaching unimpressive, until you realize he was doing it every single week, season after season, and wasn't just some scruffy hack enjoying an abnormal run of blind luck. Most coaches would have written him off from the beginning for his lack of technique. If that were the case, we would have missed out on long-standing Bundesliga and World Cup records that have only recently been broken. In fact, trying to fix his technique through reductionist and repetitive drills without any defenders may have possibly ruined what made him such a prolific goalscorer in the first place: his creativity and resourcefulness. Possessing a variety of skills that can be adapted to the situation in order to achieve consistent outcomes is what's referred to as response flexibility. The idea of response flexibility is captured brilliantly by Luis Enrique, former coach of FC Barcelona. Game technique does not relate to passing between points in training. No matter how you react, pass or adjust, the technique rarely remains the same in football. The ability to execute in different ways depending on the situation is called technique. In order for players to develop this type of adaptive skill, they must train in game-like environments and be allowed freedom of expression in the process. Training activities must involve active perception and decision-making, such as small-sided games, and the decisions must not always be made for the player by the coach. Not only is this more enjoyable for the players, but it is more likely to lead to higher levels of performance during a game, since players learn to become autonomous decision-makers on the field. In fact, small-sided games can even be changed and manipulated to emphasize the development of different skills and abilities in game-like environments. Thanks for watching this video. We hope you now have a deeper understanding of player development in soccer. For more evidence-based insight on how to train for optimal skill development in soccer, such as how to manipulate the parameters of small-sided games during training, check out our blog article titled "The Science of Skill." For those wanting an incredibly in-depth and scientific review of technical skill in soccer, check out our blog article titled "The Interconnected Nature of Technical Skill in Soccer." If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment or message us directly through our website. Until next time,